The woke banana.
Hello and welcome back to Bananaville. I am Shush Manu. It's Bananaville time. Hello and welcome back to Bananaville. I am the democratically elected mayor of Bananaville, and today I've run out of citizens to interview, so we have town drunk Manu and a resident that we affectionately refer to as Toilet Story Sophie. How are we today?
Oh!
I don't know which one's worse.
I'm gonna go with good.
I'm gonna go and put some rum in my coffee. I'll be right back.
Manu, don't pretend there wasn't some in there already.
Yeah, put some coffee in your rum is the way I would think of it.
I never said there wasn't. I'm just gonna go put more rum into it.
Excellent. I think that since you're both doing well, we need to start this podcast off with two announcements. Two bits of, what do they call them? House cleaning?
Housekeeping.
I don't know.
Housekeeping?
Housekeeping.
I like house cleaning.
What's the difference between keeping and
Yeah,
cleaning?
house cleaning.
House cleaning.
I think we should keep it to house cleaning because I think it's a reflection of how crap we are all doing. That it's not like we're maintaining. Like, no, we need to clean this shit out.
No, we are in desperate need of a clean. First things first, our editor has humbly requested that all of you, if you're unsubscribed, please do subscribe to the Blue Banana podcast. It will make him very happy. It will make us varying degrees of happy, and it'll just help push the podcast to the unsuspecting world. Our second announcement is that if you receive a comment in the comment section from something that says Telegram at Blue Banana, whatever, and they say, message me, I have a prize for you. Maybe that prize is a PS4 or an iPad or a MacBook. It's a scam. Do not do it. So I actually mentioned this many episodes ago because my channels have all been subject to this scam for months now. And I think that Manu, your one started to be targeted, like a month ago? Because I saw you complain to YouTube about it on Twitter.
No, it's been going on for months. I think same time as you. I just think I've been fighting it differently than yours. Like, my strategy at the beginning was just blocking the individual accounts, which did not work. They just pop up. Yeah, I've just switched strategies, which is blocking phrases and words, which is hilarious.
I've tried that as well, but they keep doing it. They keep getting around it. They keep using new words.
But I will say, the more phrases I block, the stranger these calls to action gets. So actually, people don't respond to it. So I'm not sure if I can find it. I think I posted it on Twitter somewhere. Let me quickly scroll down because I started blocking so many phrases, everything around Telegram and I have a prize for you. And
I started blocking certain emojis as well because
they
use,
like the gift emoji
quite often. Yeah.
So one I got recently trying to get around all the blocked phrases I have was, thanks for the feedback. Expect more videos very soon. Send me a message. I have something for you.
Oh, God.
So they're getting so dubious. Yeah, they're getting so dubious.
But they're also getting very smart. The idea of, thanks for the feedback and I'm going to have more videos for you.
I have something for you sounds so shady. It sounds like I'm going to send him dick pics.
The last sentence definitely sounds very creepy, like, I've got something in my front pocket. But the rest of the comment, it sounds like quite legit.
Yeah, so in case you're unaware, this is a scam that is currently like an endemic on all of YouTube. Pretty much every YouTuber over a certain size is targeted by these people who take your profile picture, they have some incarnation of your username as well, and they just reply to everyone in your comments saying you've won a prize, and when you actually contact them, then they ask you to pay a fee, to post the prize.
Did that happen to you too? Because when I started to ban stuff like Telegram and stuff from my comments as phrases, they kind of switched to calling the username of that scam is text me on Telegram at Mr. O'Hara.
Yeah. Or Mr. Grandline, etc. And they just keep changing that. I've blocked so many of those accounts. But it's impossible to stop them. And YouTube will do nothing.
I used to loathe these comments, but by now it's kind of become a really fun pastime for me because I appreciate there's the little details I feel that make this so special. It's the Mr. O'Hara, as if I would call myself Mr. O'Hara.
It's nice to read one of them, maybe two, about 10 minutes after you've posted a video and they've replied to every comment in your comment section, all 50 of them with those. It gets a bit of a drag to go through them.
Which is kind of disappointing. I'm not sure if any of you guys use TubeBuddy. recently. They have this beta feature, which is remove all comments from this user. It just doesn't work. It's such a good feature, but it doesn't work. So,
It doesn't work.
yeah.
That's the most frustrating thing. So when you block someone on YouTube from posting in your comments or appearing on your channel, all it does is remove that single comment that you used to block them. It doesn't remove everything they've ever said like it should. It should be such an easy thing to do. So it means that you need to go and select every comment individually. And when you've got videos that are getting like thousands of comments, it's impossible. Like I can't even keep up with it.
I got one. The new one is from 5 hours ago. Congratulations, you won giveaway.
Not even the...
Yeah, or
Nope.
a giveaway.
Nope, it's just giveaway.
But people do fall for these because I get DMs on every platform every day saying, hey, you told me to message you. And I've just had to stop replying to them because I get too many of them. So people are definitely falling for this scam. And that's very troubling. Very troubling. I imagine that most of them are younger, but then again, maybe not. Maybe I just overestimate people as a glob.
I would have expected people to be aware of this by now, especially because, like you say, it is everywhere on YouTube. Even my channel got hit by this, and considering my size, I was very surprised. They're actually to the point that when I alerted everyone, you know, the community about this and put it as a community post, people were like, oh, Joy Girl's big enough to get attacked by these scams. This is how you know you've made it in the YouTube world. And people were celebrating that we were getting hit by these scammers.
Yeah, congratulations. It is a big milestone.
I'd be very curious. I kind of want to try this because I'm just thinking, if you just blocked words like, because I'm kind of thinking my way of thought is like, ban phrases that I personally would never use. Like, you have been selected or some shit. Like, I would never post that. But then I'm like, should I ban giveaway? Because if I ever do a giveaway, I'm like, maybe. But now I'm thinking, even if I ban it, I probably, as the channel owner, can still post it myself. I feel like my comment would probably not be redacted, would it?
I don't think it is because... Oh, actually, I've never tried it. I don't think so, though. I think as the channel owner, you get priority over any rules you set, like a god. This is a particularly tricky problem for me, though, because long before this scam was a thing, I actually have run giveaways in the comment section. Like during videos, I've asked, you know, post who your favorite Whitebeard commander is and stuff like that. So I actually... Yeah, I have a history of actually running giveaways.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger problem for you. I think that's why people on your channel might be more susceptible to this, because like I've gotten like messages like, is this legit? But mostly it's like, hey, there's like a scam going on, is like the most messages I get.
I get 3 types of messages. One is, hey, are you aware of the scam that's going on? Yes, I'm aware. I've been aware for months. Second most common type of message, hey bruh, thanks for choosing me as the winning guy. You told me to message you, not through Twitter or, you know, Instagram or wherever you're gonna find me, but I'm choosing this one anyway. And the third one is, and this is the really sad one, my son got scammed by your thing, which has happened to me once.
Oh wow, okay.
It was a really, really depressing message.
I was just reading the comments under my tweet that I made about this, and there was one guy who shared a screenshot.
Some people even email me.
Yeah, I've gotten emails.
They're like, didn't know how to get in contact with you, so I've used your email, your business email.
I mean, that makes sense. Oh, actually, I don't know about you, Liam, but I know on my Twitter, I set mine on private, so people can't message me unless I follow them. So that might be why they have to email you, because they can't contact you on Twitter, but I suppose that depends on your account settings.
Yeah, of course. The point is that they just find every way to contact me that, interestingly enough, isn't the way the scammer told them to contact them, which I find quite fascinating.
Or do you think they have, and then they're also contacting you? Or maybe, I mean, what even is Telegram?
Oh, it's a messenger service. It's where you can spread your conspiracy theories.
I was completely unaware of its existence before this, yeah. I didn't know that Telegram existed. But I have had users send me messages that they've had on Telegram, because a couple of them have almost fallen for it, but not quite. And let me see if I can bring up my screenshots or something. Yeah. So this is official Grand Line Review Telegram. One of my users says, thanks. And then the official Grand Line Review guy says, you deserve more than this, okay? Congratulations once again. What is your shipping address and country postal code? And then it spirals into discussions like that. All Here we go. So after, $53 was requested for postal payment via Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. I don't know what Zelle is. My audience member who says, I can't do that. That seems fishy. To which official Grand Line Review replies, are you insulting my personality?
Are you?
Like that,
Are you
that
insulting?
was the reply.
To which your audience member said, yes, I will do that shit for free.
To which my audience member said, no, I think Liam is a great content creator, rah-ba-da-ba-da, not gonna fall for the scam. And then the scammer gets upset and says, I'm looking for another subscriber, okay? I'm looking for someone who trusts me. And it's just one of those things where it's like, if the scammer isn't speaking decent English, it's not me. And they're not doing it in the comment sections either. It's normally like really cobbled together English. And I guess that can be hard to detect if English isn't your first language, but there are a lot of very obvious signs to not fall for this scam.
It's basically the modern day Nigerian prince.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. It's just Nigerian Liam.
Yeah, it's official Nigerian Grand Line Review contacting you.
So the biggest power move you can do, I guess, which I just did, is block the arrow, like pointing up finger emoji and the present emoji.
Because
they're always like
I think I've
pointing
done
up
that
to
one
them.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Power move. But I've spoken to my partner manager about this, and she's just like, I don't know. There's like nothing you can do about it. All they ask is to forward them the accounts, which they then delete, but they just spawn more.
But they could do something about it, even if like YouTube just gave you a feature like block this user and like remove all comments account wide.
The remove all comments would be much better.
Yeah, the removal of comments would be the easiest.
Yeah, hide user from channel doesn't hide all the comments they already posted.
No, which is... it's the I know we've already gone over this, but it's the most frustrating thing. Like, I want to hide the user from the channel. Hide them. Don't keep their stuff up there. It's really difficult to deal with. Yeah.
Anyways, that was probably not the topic of today's podcast.
The topic of today's podcast is many things.
Elon.
I've got it on the list. Okay. Since you've mentioned it, you're very excited. I've got to give it to you. How's everyone doing in the post-Musk era? No, the Musk era. We haven't gotten to post yet. How's everyone doing in the Musk era of Twitter? Are we enjoying ourselves? Are we happy with our free speech?
So I will say, I'm so free right now. I'm feeling so free. One thing I thought like that, luckily, I guess, being a little bit gleeful here. Since neither you or me, Liam, are verified or were verified on Twitter before that as a creator.
Don't tell me you've done it.
I mean, I had Twitter Blue before that. Okay, so that's another thing. I had Twitter Blue before that,
okay.
but I have to upgrade to expensive Twitter Blue to get the verification mark, which
Twitter Blue.
which isn't doable outside the US in the first place. So I guess only American, like only people from the English-speaking world are eligible for verification.
Why did you have it to begin with, out of curiosity?
Remove ads, and I like the feature to edit my tweets.
Okay.
I did not
Fair
even know that Twitter Blue was a thing.
It's not widely advertised or known.
Yeah, well now it is,
So
I guess.
what are the features that come along with it?
You can edit tweets for like a certain period of time, no ads.
You're basically just paying for the edit button
You can edit your tweets.
if you pay for it.
Okay, yeah, obviously. I mean, that is pretty handy, I would say, because it's been very frustrating for me not being able to edit my tweets.
Yeah, you get higher quality video uploads. You can upload longer videos.
If that's your thing on Twitter, I suppose.
I mean, I don't really upload videos.
You can set a time frame where your tweet doesn't get sent yet, basically, and you can reread it, which has for me, like, I do typos in almost every single tweet I put.
That's probably a good idea if you're like tweeting and like
Or
a
angry.
rush of emotion
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that would have
Yeah.
saved my ass on a couple of occasions.
So that's good. But yeah, one thing I realized what happened is that I think I saw Ludwig's tweet on this, because beforehand, where like when you were verified as one of the, I think like 200,000 or 300,000 people on Twitter who are like official people with official verified accounts, I know there's like a setting you can put where basically you get notifications and people can DM you who are verified themselves. So apparently what happened is that a bunch of people just bought Twitter Blue and like flooded his DMs on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that's happened to a couple of creators at the moment, because I've seen that posted. But it's very interesting because the verification is still different. Like if you've been officially verified through their system versus paid verification, it highlights and shows people which one it is.
No, I don't think that's quite the case. I think that Twitter is manually redoing the official person thing. I think the official thing, yeah, because I know there's people who are verified who didn't get the official thing automatically.
I'm seeing a lot of, like currently at the moment, tapping on a profile's verified badge will tell you if a user is a verified public figure or if they purchased verification. And there are like two different things. This account is verified because it's subscribed, or this account is verified because it's notable in government, news, entertainment, or another category.
I mean, but I feel like it kind of loses its value now. I can tap on it.
I mean, questionably, what value did it have to begin with? The entire concept has made all of verification lose its value.
Yeah, I mean, I think before, like the point before was, I think, especially if you're someone like a creator. I feel like me personally, and probably you too, Liam, like Twitter is the place where most creators network. You too, Sophie, I guess.
Yes. I mean, it's where we organize the podcast, for example, every week in our group chat.
And it's like where I talk to pretty much all other creators and like even like people from my team and stuff. So if I see that someone who's verified followed me, I will probably check out their profile, and that like might help me, you know, connect with people who otherwise I might not have checked out. So I do feel like in that sense, it used to have like a certain amount, like, or it used to give you like a certain amount of credibility. Whether you deserve it or not is a different question, but you definitely stand out in that sense.
It used to.
Yeah.
But now, it
yeah.
doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No, it absolutely doesn't.
Like, you've got to manually hover on someone's verification and see how they were verified. God, I love this free speech. I can't get enough of it.
I think so.
So free.
Elon, right? It's so interesting how he... where to begin, right? So, in a broad stroke, I fucking love how he managed to go from someone who I respected and, like, whose everyone's image of him was like, oh, if he has to say something on an issue, this is like... And like, oh, Elon Musk said this about AI. He said this about like green energy. It's like, oh, I better listen what he has to say.
Yeah, he used to be the cool entrepreneur.
Yeah, and it went from that. In like 2 or 3 years, he managed to go from that to basically Elon Musk said this about this, and you're like, oh, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, what the fuck? I feel like he's like trying to give his opinion and like seem smart about so many things that he's been proven to be wrong about, and people calling him out for having no fucking idea what he's talking about. That he kind of rebounds where he lost credibility in the fields he probably actually does have experience.
He lived long enough to see himself become the villain.
Yeah. Not only the villain, it's like more kind of like a joke, really, in a way. So, I don't know. It's even things with do you know the channel Adam Something?
No.
No.
Okay, wait, let me send it to you. So his YouTube channel is great. It's all about city building and city structuring and kind of like technology. And his channel basically got big off of now the Ukraine conflict because he's from Eastern Europe, but also in the first place from basically taking things that Elon Musk proposed, like his stupid underground tunnels, and basically tearing them to shreds. Why they're like bullshit ideas for rich people. Wait, so you should check out that channel if you have the chance. It's absolutely hilarious.
That sounds really interesting because I do watch channels like that. I think another one is called like the B1M, which tackles the logistics of megastructures and such, and like breaks them down in a really easy way.
Yes. So imagine that channel, but with really dry sarcasm.
Oh, I love it already. The thumbnails are great. Like, what even is this?
And so basically his thing is like, he takes like these videos and he's like, oh yeah, like drive the Tesla down in like elevators located throughout the city and then put them on this rail system so they can go faster. He's like, you know what would be even smarter? You know, like have people go down these tunnels in like centralized hubs, and then instead of having just one pod with like 3 people, you can have many pods that can carry many people. And like in the end his videos always come out, it's like it's just a train, just make it a train. So they're really good. I strongly recommend. Like I love absolutely, he's one of my favorite YouTubers. I love his stuff. It's so funny and really good, like really good content also.
Yeah, it comes down on Elon Musk hard. It's like you scroll down and there's already 2 with Elon with the clown nose.
Elon clowns, yeah. I have seen at least 3 so far, yeah. Sophie, do you have a Musk-based opinion?
Not so much. I mean, I never really kept up on the news with him. The only thing that I've seen recently was, again, going back to free speech. And I think this actually does bring up a more interesting, maybe slightly, I don't want to get into the politics of it very much, but I imagine you guys saw his tweet
We're not
about,
American.
Endorsing the we're endorsing the Republicans. And if you own a platform such as Twitter and you use that Twitter account to endorse a political party.
No, free speech. It's free speech.
Well,
Sophie.
this is very interesting because Elon Musk, trying to find the tweet, I think it was earlier this year, he also tweeted exactly what you said, Sophie, that if you are the head of a social media network, you should not be putting your finger on the scale politically.
Yeah, that platform should be politically neutral.
Yes. Here is the exact tweet. For Twitter to deserve public trust, it must be politically neutral, which effectively means upsetting the far right and the far left equally. But, political neutrality is when the CEO of Twitter endorses a political party publicly.
Yeah, and encourages people to vote a certain way.
One way or the other.
In a country where voting isn't even compulsory.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. So, I mean, this is a bit of a, maybe not open that barrel what free speech actually means, because I do feel like people don't really get what it actually is. Like, free speech doesn't mean you can just, like, free speech doesn't mean you can force a private company to basically not, like, if I'm a company, like, if on our podcast the government suddenly came in and said you have to talk to these people, and we were like, but we only want to talk to fucking elephants. that would be actually censorship and, inhibiting our free speech. So if Twitter says, okay, we as Twitter, we only want to have a platform where only people who have 2 thumbs and 1 arm can tweet, then that's their fucking choice. Like, it'll probably, like, the market will decide if that's a good choice for them, but it's still their choice.
Manu, did you know that the US government did just that across media? I think it was several decades ago now during the war on drugs. I was watching a video about this recently. It was so fascinating.
Interesting. I did not
The
know
US
that.
government used to offer generous payments for media companies to basically engage in anti-drug propaganda that they were spreading. And there is this infamous episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Beer Bad, where Buffy drinks a beer and, like, regresses to a caveman-like state. And at the end of the episode, it turns out that the beer was spiked by a guy at the bar who, like, really hates them kids. And it's a notoriously horrible episode of Buffy. Like, it didn't hit me as a kid, but I always skipped it when I was rewatching it. And it turns out that video was made to take advantage of the government payout. And in the end, they didn't get the payout because the beer wasn't bad. It was spiked with magic, and it wasn't really conveying the message the way the government wanted to. So they made a piece of steaming garbage, and they didn't even get paid for it.
They did it for free.
Interesting.
Bad.
I mean, and it's like, not only that, it's kind of him going, oh yeah, Twitter should be a platform for free speech, but if you're not paying $8 a month to get verified, your tweets will be suppressed by the algorithm. And then he looks at he says that, looks at the audience like, clap, right? This is awesome.
Clap, please. Also, he has allegedly discussed now putting all of Twitter behind a paywall eventually.
So that you are actually going to have to pay to use Twitter as a platform.
Allegedly, that is a thought that is swimming around in the brain of Musk.
I wonder what the rationale behind that is, because there are plenty of other platforms that exist. And I'm sure, I don't know what you guys think about it. Do you think people would migrate, or people would just...
I don't think there's a lot of rationale behind it, Sophie.
What my question is, do you think people will just, okay, well, that sucks, I'm going to have to pay and just pay and to get that service now? Or do you think we'll just see the rise of a new platform?
I think MKHB, did you guys watch his video about it? Did you watch that, Liam?
I did, yeah. He had something very interesting to say was you can't charge for something that's already free.
They used to be free, yeah, which I totally agree. So I don't think it would work. It would be a bit of a shame because while Twitter is incredibly toxic in many ways, I did enjoy it in the function it had, kind of, where you could network there I don't know. I think it would be sad if this would be kind of the end of Twitter, but we'll see. It's just, again, kind of with Elon Musk, it kind of went from being the cool visionary entrepreneur guy to being like this guy who just has the worst midlife crisis breakdown and is pulling the entire world into it kind of thing.
$44 billion midlife crisis.
Yeah, that's literally what's happening, I feel. It's literally just a dude with way too much money who's like, I wish Twitter was like this. And then he does it without like thinking it through. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit sad in a way, but also entertaining and hilarious at the same time, I will say.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta laugh.
That'll cry.
Yeah, porque no los dos. Before we move away from Twitter, I want to point out one thing, my favorite thing about this entire thing. Said the word thing too much. As is widely reported, Elon Musk paid almost or around $44 billion for Twitter. Do you guys think that was good value?
Well, how much did they make? I think they made last year in revenue. I read an article about this recently. They made $5 billion in revenue last year. So that means the return on investment is like what, 8 years?
9, 10, depends how many advertisers are pulling out.
And that's a big thing, right? Because advertisers have pulled out. But if he's going to start charging $8 to get verification from, I don't know how many millions or billions of Twitter that users there are.
Probably not billions.
It's not enough.
Millions?
I think someone calculated it through. Wasn't it in the MKHB video as well?
I'm pretty sure, yeah, Marquez did it, and it's like a drop in the bucket. I can tell you that of August 2022, Twitter's valuation was just over $13 billion.
Really?
I mean, I think the question isn't really whether whether Twitter is worth the money. I think the question is more if it was a smart thing to buy it as a private person.
Well, considering he tried to pull out of the deal, I'm gonna go ahead and say no.
That's another thing I love about Musk. He loves playing the hero. He loves playing the good guy, but only as long as he doesn't really have to sacrifice anything for it. He's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy Twitter and make it better. And then they're like, okay. And he's like, oh, no, I wasn't serious. And then they're like, too late.
Yeah, no, they actually sued him to complete the transaction. That's the only reason why he owns Twitter now, because he was taken to court over it.
It's the same with the Starlink thing for Ukraine. Like, he was like, oh yeah, we're gonna give, at the beginning of the war, he was like, I'm gonna give Ukraine free internet for however long the war lasts. And then the war lasted for a while, and he was like, so US government, I think you guys should pay this. It's like one of those things that just backfires immensely when you try playing the good guy, but then you contradict yourself, so it's clear that you're only doing it for like public appearance, which makes it a net negative, I would say, in reputation in the end. Because even though he is doing a good thing, just because the intention is kind of assy, it comes across as worse than as if he had done nothing in the end, I think.
Kept quiet, kept silent on the issue, and stuck in his corner.
$44 billion.
Buckaroos.
I hope it was worth it for his increased public perception.
Comedy is now legal on Twitter.
What's trending on Twitter now? Elon the hero or comedy is legal? Yeah.
People make fun of Elon Musk. Comedy is now illegal on Twitter.
Oh, another thing I love. I know I said we'd move away, but there is one more thing about how he immediately walked into the HQ and fired the board of executives and actually had them escorted out by security as well. Grand maneuver. He then had to pay all of them like a combined $100 million in severance. So those executives were pretty damn happy.
And then they rehired some people because they realized they couldn't just let them go, that they needed them.
There are also reports that other companies like Facebook were poaching workers that were left, and so Twitter was about to be very bare bones.
Oh well.
Oh well.
We will see how this all ends.
We will, whether we remain on Twitter or not. I can tell you that if Twitter becomes pay to use, I'm immediately moving all of my business to Discord, because I currently use Twitter to communicate with you guys, to network with my artists and everything, but I'm not paying for Twitter. No. If anything, it will encourage me to spend less time on Twitter, which is a problem, because there are some times where I get too invested in Twitter. So the paywall will solve my problem.
Oh, but then what dude in a room videos are we gonna have?
Maybe I'll start some shit on Reddit instead.
You should. Did you have any Reddit drama recently?
No, because he's been spending too much time on Twitter.
I didn't, but you did, Manu, if you're unaware.
I am. I prefer to stay unaware, really.
It's just a perpetual cycle.
I mean, it's the exact same thing over and over again. Let me see if I can find it.
It's fine. I don't even want to know.
It's fine? You don't want to know?
No.
All right. Well, let's just say it wasn't as big as some of the other threads, but it was Yeah, a couple of hundred comments deep. It was a mid Manu thread.
One thing I will say, even though I felt like shit when that first happened early this year, I went back and checked and I actually gained a bunch of subscribers from that entire drama thing, which I guess is what usually happens.
Yeah, it's the publicity, you know. No publicity is bad publicity, or is it all as good? One or the other.
Are people still complaining about the thumbnail stuff? That is hilarious.
Yes, no, that's exactly what the thread is about. It's still bad. It's exactly, there's nothing else to complain about. They can't complain about the actual content you make, so...
I mean, let's not get into it. I think they can't complain about the thumbnails either, but I have left that debate behind.
Alright, let's leave that behind. So, I have an interesting thing for both of you. That thing is a story, followed by an idea. So I was having lunch a while ago with one of my friends that I haven't seen in potentially years. And so as you're catching up with people, you start learning about their life developments, and she is now engaged to someone I've never met. I point that out because the natural thing is to then ask about them. I asked, what does he do for a living? And my friend says, I can't really talk about it because he works for ASIO.
What is that?
ASIO, in case anyone, well, I mean, no one's gonna know. Ideally, no one should know they exist because they're Australia's spy organization. They're kind of like our CIA, like our very budget CIA.
Australia has a spy organization.
We absolutely do.
Who are you spying on?
I don't know. I'm not allowed to know.
I think it's mostly to do with immigration, to be honest. I think a bulk of their efforts, or at least in the public knowledge, I think it's about immigration.
Really?
Yeah, it's the Australian Security Intelligence Organization is what ASIO stands for. But it's the closest thing we have to a CIA of sorts.
That we know of.
No one really knows what they do. That's kind of the point here, because as soon as my friend said that, it completely shut down conversation in that direction. And it only hit me much later, the power that I now hold. Because we've had this discussion before, like individually together, potentially even on the podcast before. I have a lot of difficulty telling people what I do because it generally leads to like a lot of invasive questions, a lot of not understanding, and just a lot of socializationing that I don't want to do. And so in the past, I've had certain strategies to tell people that I do something really boring. Like, I'm sorry for any of you who do these professions, but like, oh, I work in IT, or I work in tax accounting. And that did backfire on me one time when I said I worked in IT, because then there were lots of follow-up questions from someone who also worked in IT, and I basically had to admit I lied. Which, never a great impression for someone you've only just met, but I wouldn't be able to keep up the charade. I don't know the first thing about IT.
You should have just said, all I ask all day is, have you tried turning it on and off?
Yeah.
Turn it off and then back on. Have you tried that?
I basically just say that, yeah. It just dawned on me after we had this conversation. What if I said, I work for ASIO? Sorry, I can't tell you anything about my profession. Surely that just completely stops the conversation there and prevents any future problems from people asking about what I do. I'm really excited about this revelation.
Like, I don't know if it really does stop people asking, because I feel like people will ask because they're very curious about what ASIO do.
Yes.
And just say like, oh, just leave out the details and just like, what can you tell me? You know, like what does that actually entail? I feel like you could still get questions.
But then Liam can just be like, I can tell you nothing.
I really can't tell you. Like, it's in my contract.
Or I could say, I can tell you, but then they'll be watching you.
Like, I can tell you, but then I have to kill you. And then walk away.
Because I'd basically be saying, I'm a secret spy. You're not allowed to know anything, and if you do, it's to your detriment.
I wonder whether ASIO workers can even tell people that they work for ASIO.
Well, maybe. Maybe they can't. Maybe there's a loophole, because I wasn't told by him that he works for ASIO. I was told by his partner.
But then he told his partner.
They must have a protocol.
I'm sure they do.
And if they can't tell people they work for ASIO, maybe they've all got like fun aliases like, oh, I'm a baker in Marrickville or whatnot.
And they all have to study extensively about what a baker does.
And then the other guy's like, oh, how funny. I'm a tailor in Melbourne.
I am also a baker.
And then they just stare at each other. Funny you would say that. I wanted to buy some bread.
This reminds me of, I did an interview with BDA Law, who is another One Piece YouTuber on the platform, and we got into this discussion about talking about what we do and how difficult it is around tax time. And he said something that blew me away, because he doesn't like telling people necessarily that he's a YouTuber either, because again, it leads to all of the questions. So he legitimately used to tell people that he was an astronaut. And I'm like, you've just made life so much harder for yourself.
Oh my god, did he actually do that?
Like, he insists that he used to tell people he was an astronaut.
Do you think he just decided, what's a cool profession? Like, what did I want to be when I was a young boy? You know what? I'm never going to become an astronaut, but I'd like to at least tell people that I'm an astronaut.
That's like, what's his name from Georgia? Herschel Walker. Do you know that story in the US? Who was just like up for Senate? So he apparently just told people he worked for the CIA and that he was a police officer, like, which was just complete bullshit. But he just told people that. It's like he was kind of just like telling people shit about his life that he, like you said, it's kind of like, I always wished I was a CIA officer. I guess I'm just gonna fucking tell people I did that. So that's kind of that lifestyle. That's cool. I want to do that too.
You know what the ultimate lie would be, Liam? I think would be to tell people
I'm listening.
that you work for ASIO, but it's secret, so you're not allowed to appear to work for ASIO. And so what you do instead, as a front, is run a YouTube channel discussing One Piece. But that's all a front.
You think you can actually make money on YouTube? No.
Yeah,
It's
I
all a
think
front.
that should
All
be
a
what
front.
you
Oh, maybe
tell
that is
people.
what Liam has been doing all along.
Yeah, maybe.
Cut that, Riley.
Or maybe he's been mining our secrets for the past year.
Maybe we're the front. Maybe we're the agents.
The Australian government has lots of information about Manu, very suspicious German man living in Tokyo, Japan.
As your friend and colleague, I'm going to have to say that you're getting a bit... Maybe we should move away from this topic, that's all I'm saying.
Alright, too much heat.
Too much heat. Way too much heat.
I feel like the file on me would be pretty underwhelming.
I feel like it'd be pretty funny.
This guy drinks way too much beer a day. I don't think we have to worry about him at all.
It's like, we're not sure. Is this a bomb or has he just eaten too much onion again today? What is it? What could it be?
Why does he always have food poisoning?
Yeah, why does he? That is good. We should get the Secret Service on that. I feel like there is a plot here against me. That's what I feel.
Couldn't possibly be poor life choices.
I have a question for you, Sophie, about professions, because you have like 10 jobs. So if someone asks what you do, what is your first answer?
It depends on the day. Honestly, it depends on the day. Just depends on what I'm feeling like telling them. Sometimes I don't like to lead with the fact that I study law and that I'm a paralegal, because I feel like it sets expectations way too high. So I like to just sort of like mutter that at the end and like, oh yeah, also like I'm a paralegal and I studied law. And they're like, oh okay, but like, you know, they're too focused on whatever I told them first. Sometimes I just tell them that I tutor, which is like probably takes up the least of my time. I did have an in-depth discussion with someone who is studying to be a teacher about tutoring, even though I really just do it. Like the only reason why I still tutor is just because my students and I have just grown way too attached to each other, and I just feel bad about leaving them with another tutor now that we've built this relationship. I also
Very
have to
sweet.
clarify a lot when I tell people that I'm a policy officer, because I have to really specify I am not a police officer, and I just want that
Policey
to be
officer.
known that I'm not a police officer. It's very rare that I will lead with YouTube.
I like law a lot, but I wouldn't call myself a law YouTuber.
So I'm a paralegal who makes hentai videos and tutors on the side.
And then make submissions to the government.
And the government takes my opinion like super seriously.
I think that sounds about right. Sums up my life.
Sounds pretty good.
Manu, what do you tell people?
I usually just say, oh, I work in social media.
Oh, that sounds boring.
Exactly. That sounds boring enough for people to be like, oh, cool. And then
That's
the
when I turn to the
conversations-
person next to you and ask what they do instead.
That's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. People are like, oh, cool. And then that's it. And I'm like, thank you.
Do you think they think you're like in digital marketing or something?
Yeah, probably. They're kind of like, oh, he...
He's the guy that makes Instagram so shit and makes it have ads every 2 posts.
Who does like the promoted product tweets. Yeah, I think so. I think people give me that look where they're like, oh no,
You're
his
a
parents
mess.
must be so disappointed.
You're-
So it's a good answer. I like it. It's also comfortably close to the truth. I mean, I do social media, so.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Does anyone ever push it, or is it always just a nice conversation killer?
No, it's really.
So it has a 100% hit rate. Great.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 times it's, oh, cool. But like really like patronizing.
I think you guys are both talking to very bad people, because if someone told me that they work in social media, I think I'd really want to know, like, so what in social media? I think I'd want to know, like, are you the one making all my social media platforms so unusable and just filling it up with ads?
Well, that's the thing, Sophie. People did start asking me that. I was talking to good people. They were like, oh, you work in IT. Tell me more about IT. I desire to know more. And I'm like, oh, fuck my life. I don't know anything about IT. I lied, all right? I'm a fraud. I don't work in IT at all.
And then did you end up having to tell them that you were a One Piece YouTuber?
Yes, because at that point I was just like, well, I can't lie to them again. I've just got to say what I do and say why I lied to them and then hope that I never encounter this person again.
Nah, you should have gone with Azio the second time, because then at least your lie would have seemed excusable. At least it would have been like, oh no, he couldn't have told us the truth.
You're absolutely right, Sophie. I didn't know about that back then, but this layering strategy, love it. It's going to go IT. If that backfires, Azio. Brick wall of Azio.
Has it ever occurred to you to just say you're a stay-at-home dad for Puck?
No, because that makes me sound like a wanker. Yeah. I stay at home and take care of my dog.
You can just say you take care of your kid, but you don't like to talk about him.
And then it seems like Manu's your kid, who's just the most disappointing child on earth, working in social media.
Yeah, my kid works in social media, so I need to work to support him.
Liam is like, I actually, I have to stay home and take care of my kid. He has this really rare conditions where all his body parts are really stretchy, like it's all really loose, and his hair gets white.
I get what you're saying there. I get the reference. But you can't say stuff like rare, because then it makes people go, well, why is it rare? Tell me more, you interesting person, and I don't want that.
Just be like, we don't like discussing it with other people.
You're getting too deep into the conversation though. Like, I want to stop it at a more shallow level.
Children, I don't think, is the way to go. Definitely not children. People definitely want to find out about your child.
You can be like, what do you do for a living? I want to be king of the pirates.
That is actually a great answer. I think that could work.
Yeah, so what do? I'm an aspiring pirate king.
Yeah.
Aspiring pirate king. But then copyright laws have been getting so strict recently.
Or at least you could just say that you're an aspiring member of the Pirate King's crew.
That's going to prompt people to do the head tilt and then go, elaborate.
So that's it.
Doesn't matter. I'm going to try out the spy strategy. If that doesn't work, then we'll come back to this and brainstorm.
To bring it slightly towards anime, have you guys been watching Chainsaw Man?
No, I haven't. I've been waiting for the episodes to stack up.
I'm doing that right now, actually. I watched the first 2, and now I'm just kind of like, I want to binge this.
That's what I want as well.
All right, so let's talk about something. Have you guys watched Andor? Are you into Star Wars?
I've heard
Liam?
it's all right. Not anymore.
It's really good. It's not Star Wars per se, I would say. Like, it doesn't feel Star Wars-y, especially given what Disney has done with the franchise, but it feels a little bit like a drama, I would say, like maybe something you see on like HBO or something. It's really well made. I enjoy it a lot. It feels a lot more mature. There's like fantastic storytelling. The story is actually taking its time for a change. Characters are great. I was really pleasantly surprised by this. I was kind of expecting like another Boba Fett kind of like, oof. It's like, at least give us the lightsabers. Like, don't give us boring characters. But this, no, it's legitimately, very surprisingly a great show. And I think it's kind of a shame because it has fantastic reviews generally, but it's just not being talked about, probably because the characters aren't those fan servicey characters.
I see it trending on Twitter a lot with like the little Rebel Alliance symbol. Like, people are enjoying it. I know of it.
I recommend it. It's really good.
Okay, noted. I just looked this up because I'm interested. Disney bought Star Wars for $4 billion. So Star Wars cost 1/11 of Twitter.
I think that was a steal.
Which one?
Genuinely though, I think the Star Wars purchase, I think that might be quite a steal, because there are diehard Star Wars fans that will definitely watch and that will definitely follow because they need to.
Oh, they've definitely made it all back by now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think it was definitely a steal.
I just think it's interesting because I would rather have bought Star Wars than Twitter. That's the disparity.
I think so too.
Yeah, and I'm not even a Star Wars fan. My question was going to be whether you guys are watching Rings of Power.
Ooh, so I started watching it while while I was flying back from the US to Japan, but I have not continued since then. Okay, I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about it, actually. It was not as bad as I initially thought it would be. There are parts that pleasantly surprised me, but I think while they started off with like a promising premise, I think I made it to like episode 6 or something so far. And I think it kind of starts dragging a little bit towards that
think it
point.
takes that long?
So yeah, what was your, or did you watch it, Liam?
Not really. My opinion of it was I watched episode 1, and I was like, and so I just didn't continue it. And instead what I did, which I think I enjoyed much more, was I watched reviews of the episodes done by a guy who like deep fakes himself as Gandalf. So it's like Gandalf reviews Rings of Power episodes.
I think that's funny.
They are entertaining as shit. Just watching Gandalf sitting on the couch, like ripping a shirt apart.
Oh, I think I know the guy. Does he do a lot of shorts too?
I assume so, because he has the power. And he does other characters as well. Like he has a deep faked Elrond and
I think he's the same. He might be the same dude that does like Obi-Wan also.
potentially, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Those are great.
He's hilarious.
Can't recommend those videos enough.
Okay, cool. No, I mean, I will say the cinematography and everything was really beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's stunning. Aesthetically perfect.
Yeah, and even the storylines I think are cool. Like, for example, I think the Hobbits was something that were kind of, I think in the preview it looked kind of like, ooh, what the hell is this? But I like those characters a lot, and I like the idea behind it. It's kind of like this early story of how the Hobbits, you know, used to come into existence and how they used to live. So I think in general they did a lot of things right. It's more of a narrative issue that I personally have. I mean, like one thing I will say, like people shitting on having black elves and black dwarves in the story, I feel like, dude, really get a life and get a hobby if that's like something you have a problem with.
That's the thing about Rings of Power. There's a critical mass of just like really bad faith criticism, which is kind of engulfing the legitimate criticism I see, which is almost always story based and like sort of doesn't really stick true to Tolkien sort of based as well.
Tolkien would never have wanted black people in his works, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? This is a pure Aryan race, the elves. They're clearly based on Nazi.
Rings of Power is woke.
That was criticism I never understood. I think it was probably just kind of being like, oh yeah, Hollywood is woke, and talking about woke culture gets you a lot of views or whatever.
In a certain niche it does, yeah.
Like, fair enough, if there's like arguments, actual evidence and arguments for that, I think, yeah, you can have the discussion. But I feel like in that case, it was really, I think one person did it and then he got a lot of views, and like kind of every Lord of the Rings review channel on YouTube was like, oh, that gets 500,000 views. I got to talk about how bad black elves are.
It's been a thing since like the second Star Wars film of the new trilogy. Like they were calling it woke to include, what was her name? Rose? I believe it was, the Asian character. And that's where a lot of this discussion really spawned from, and now everything with a minority character is woke.
That's slightly different though, because I think Rose was a character that felt like that's different, because I think she felt, as far as I remember, because like those movies I try to forget, but it felt like they just took a character like that and placed it in there just for the sake of having her there, because she barely she didn't have a role really in the story, which I think then it's like, oh, she's just there for representation, which I think is like a bit of a problem. But like filling roles that are part of the story and are essential to the story with, you know, like fill them with whoever you want. If they're great actors, you know, I feel like that's all that counts. Can they like bring that character to life?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a difficult area to toe, and I'm sure people have very passionate feelings about it on either side. But I think you're like right. I don't see the point of just having a character in there just to tick a box and be like, okay, yeah, we've got someone who's Asian on the screen, so, you know, job done, and like, hooray us, at least we got the representation there. I think representation has to be meaningful, otherwise it is just tokenistic, and it feels that way. You can tell when something feels fake, and you can tell when something feels just tokenistic. And I'm not saying that, and yeah. I know like this gets to a bigger debate about things like what is it? I can't remember the word. I think the acronym is AA.
Alcoholics Anonymous?
Anal
Anonymous?
Anal Anonymous?
No, when you have to fill a quota.
Affirmative action? No.
Yeah, like affirmative action. Yeah.
That's specifically an American concept though, isn't it?
I think
is
so.
It? Okay, I see it around in Australia as well.
Yeah, you're the lawyer. I'll defer to you on this, absolutely.
No, I want to say that I've not dealt with this in any sort of legal capacity. And there is an argument to be made that if you don't make roles specific for certain characters so that they do fill up like, whatever, as bad as it is, like quota you want to fill up, like sometimes those opportunities just never arise. But I think it is just this idea of like, it's bad because on one hand, it's like, why does it have to be about race? But it's also that problem because on that same side, it's like, because it's never about race, or because if you've never been in that position, you won't ever understand what it's like to be a minority.
I'm curious, how do you feel about that, Sophie, in general? Like when you have a character that's, representing, like, let's say it's an Asian character, but you feel like that character doesn't really serve any other purpose than just being Asian. Do you feel like that's per se better than not having the character in the movie? Or do you feel like it's almost, because I, like, as a as a white guy, I kind of feel like, rather have an important character cast as, as a minority or as a, like, and then I feel like it's almost worse in a way. I'm saying this carefully, but it's almost worse putting representation into something just for the sake of it, and they're not even like going as far as, looking for someone to have like an important role or like a role that actually matters. But I'm curious how you feel about that.
I suppose everyone will feel differently about it, that, like, no matter what race you are, even if you are like someone who is being, like, even if it is your race being represented. I think it bothered me a lot more when I was younger, especially when I remember I was watching this TV show. It was an Australian TV show where they had, I think it was like one of the characters that they brought in was supposed to be a South Korean. I think she was like an exchange student or something. And I remember watching that, and it was just very stereotypical. And I'm not saying that she didn't play an important role, but it was just like all the stereotypes about, South Koreans just plugged into the character.
Kimchi, anyone?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that you can't have any stereotypes put in there, because sometimes, stereotypes happen for a reason, and, they come about because, Koreans do eat a lot of kimchi. I'm not going to deny that fact. But then, and like at times it can be funny, but then it's also just like, it's give it a rest in some cases.
Oh, I thought you meant something different, because I think we talked about this where you have like a Korean character, but then it's not even played by a Korean.
Yeah, that happens so much. That happens. And I imagine it's obviously not just Koreans. And I'm sure that foreign entertainment, companies also do the same for other roles as well. Like, I'm sure, Koreans do it for other things, and but it's just...
But you feel like at least in Hollywood, you have really, in America, you literally have everyone.
Yeah, you'd have such a breadth of actors that I'm sure are dying to fill those roles, that I'm sure if you just put in a little bit more effort, like, it wouldn't be that hard to actually find someone who could speak the damn language.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And it's big scale things too. It was Black Panther, which is a fucking Marvel movie, where they have that scene. The lady, I think she's supposed to be from Busan, when they're going to do the deal, when they're trying to intercept that deal, and then they speak to that Korean lady outside the casino or wherever it was. And as soon as it played, I was like, she's definitely not Korean. Like, she's 100% not Korean. And if you are on a scale as big as freaking Marvel, you can find someone who speaks like Korean for just like a short snippet, like that small line. I don't know.
Such a wasted opportunity also, because especially as Marvel, like, you're a global brand. Like, people watch you everywhere in the fucking world. I'm not sure if you relate as much because Australia is part of the English-speaking world, so maybe like, oh, he's Australian, holy shit, is maybe not the same reaction you have. But like me as a German, for example, whenever there's like a German character that actually speaks German, I'm like, oh, that's nice, that's cool. Like, I can identify with that, and it's kind of like a nice, like, oh, cool moment. And so I feel like if you steal that from people, it kind of feels, it takes a moment that could be a nice bonding moment between me and the franchise and turns it into kind of, oh, you didn't even, like, you were too lazy to find someone that actually can, speak 5 sentences of German fluent or Korean fluent.
I will say that when it comes to Australians, obviously, I can never tell that someone isn't Australian just by listening to them in a movie, because they do usually play the stereotype of, oh, good day, mates, it's me, the Australian. And you can't tell if it's an Australian needing to play up the accent.
What do you mean stereotype? That's exactly how you sound.
But it's obviously not on the same level, but I get it, because there was a period in history where if somehow an Australian made it into the movie, it was always just Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
Like, that's all we had.
I mean, there is like a bunch of really big Australian Hollywood actors at this point, though.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
for
and
a
most of
while.
them are well known for American and British accents in films.
True,
But
true.
like, for ages.
Fair enough, I guess. I think it's cool if someone can make a different. I mean, that's I can relate less to that.
The thing is, like, I would wager to say that most people don't know that some really famous Australian actors are actually Australian.
Like Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, Jeffrey Rush, Kate Blanchett, Nicole Kidman.
Kate Blanchett is Australian?
Yeah.
Yep, she is the artistic director of the Sydney Theatre Company.
Oh, I did not know that. See?
Margot Robbie.
Yep, she was on Neighbours.
She was on Neighbours.
I did know
Neighbours.
that. Neighbours. My neighbours.
Neighbours.
I feel like one thing I wanted to and I'm maybe not to drag this on too long, but I think it's kind of what you said, Sophie, earlier about representation, and it's sad that it needs to be a topic, but it also kind of has to happen because otherwise it wouldn't. I think that's very true, and it's kind of a difficult question that kind of relates to women rights as well, I think, where it's I think in many countries it's slowly getting more and more normal in general, where people don't really like think about women, like female representation. But I remember like even like 5 years ago, maybe like in Germany and stuff, in the US, it's like a big question. Why is there like only 5% board members who are women, for example, in companies and so on and so forth? And in Germany, at least, we had something called the female quota, or like women quota, where basically every board of companies needed to have a certain amount. I think 20, I'm not sure what the percent, I think it was 20% or something, at least needs to be female. And so the big discussion there was kind of like, okay, does that actually help? Because in a way, yes, you get more women in, but then will the women be taken seriously? Because men were just going to be like, oh, you're just sitting here because of the quota, not because you can, not because you're actually qualified. But then on the other hand, if you only pick qualified, or if you say, okay, let the market pick, then that kind of bias towards men will just keep persisting. So it's kind of a similar question or a similar problem, I guess.
That's a thing we have in Australia with the arts, because during stuff like the Sydney Festival and such, we often have quotas for Indigenous work, where I say we as if I'm a member of the government, where they are actively given large pockets of funding and space, and basically done so they can create stuff. And it's not done so much because of the product, the actual product that they make. It's done more to foster that experience so that they can go on and keep working in the industry. Because like you said, if we only ever hired the people who were experienced, then we would just keep recycling the same Caucasian all over and over again.
And I think the biggest problem that it comes down to, and I think why issues like this become so politically heated, is because I don't think there's enough groundwork done to actually for people to really understand the breadth and the complexity of issues at play. Like, especially when you take into account about, like, women having to fill quotas, like that idea about, whether women are experienced enough. It also comes down to like a lot more like deeper social issues about like, a lot of the times, like speaking generally, women might not have the same qualifications because socially it's still a lot more expected that women, if they have babies, then they're going to be the ones that's going to take time off work to take care of the baby. And like from a biological standpoint, like it is also like, it is true, like, it's the woman who goes through pregnancy, it's the woman who's going to be breastfeeding if she chooses to breastfeed or if she's able to breastfeed. So like there are some like physical, limits that we are having to play with. And I don't think like people have complex, and I don't think people have like the open-mindedness to actually enter these debates or discussions. Like they should be discussions rather than debates. So that the way that I like to think about it is like, hopefully we're just transitioning, we're just in an ugly time right now where a lot of these issues are being put into like, and I guess sometimes like quite aggressive and antagonistic spheres. But like, if we can just get through it, maybe we'll get to a stage where things won't have to be about filling quotas, and it's not just doing it for the sake of doing it, or it won't be an issue that we have to think about in that way. But maybe I'm also being a bit too optimistic.
Sounds pretty woke to me, Sophie.
Fucking woke.
Should rename this the Woke Podcast. Fuck.
The woke banana.
It's gonna get cancelled now.
The woke banana sounds good. I don't know. I think it also comes down to there being like different motivations for people going against representation. I think there's people who just genuinely, like, I would count myself as someone who just genuinely thinks it would be like, that's a bit naive, but like, oh, do we even have to talk about race anymore? Isn't like everyone just like a person, right? And like, sadly, that's not the world we live in. But I think like many people kind of naively just think like, okay, well, do we have to talk about this all the time? Like, the city I live in, like, there is no racism kind of, so it doesn't help talk talking about it.
There is no racism, kind of.
kind of. You know what I'm saying? You know, like I think that's like definitely one perspective people have. I think another group is people who pretend like it's about something else, but it's really like just suppressed or hidden like racism per se, where it's kind of like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable with seeing these people, like whether it's women or like other races or something, where it's kind of like, I just don't like it. And I'm like finding a different reasoning for it.
And then there's a third group of people who are more on the influencer side, who have a financial motive to stoke those kind of aggressions and viewpoints. And so like there is a whole industry around racism and sexism and anti-SJWism, if people still use that term. I don't know if they do.
Snowflakes.
Snowflakes. Oh, snowflakes. I haven't heard that in a while. Being married to a black woman, I will say it's absolutely impossible to forget that racism exists in this world, because we can just be walking down the road and someone will yell out of their car. They'll just yell the N-word at her, and I was just like,
Jesus Christ.
the fuck?
Run them over.
Yeah,
Jesus,
no.
really?
Yeah, no, this is Sydney. This happens, like, commonly. It's not always, like, that aggressive, but there is always something.
Oh yeah, I mean, like my sister's been chased by someone like calling her a gook down the street.
Ugh.
Yeah, so it definitely happens. I think I told you guys a story about when my mum and I were going for a walk, and this was when I was younger, and this group of family were like making fun of us, and they were saying stuff like ni hao and konnichiwa, but like obviously not to be nice and like actually say hi, but like obviously just making fun of us. And mum, just being a very naive, sweet person that she is, was just like, no, we're Korean, and like trying to tell them that it's like annyeong in our language. I'm like, mum, just keep walking, like that's not what they're doing.
Your mum sounds very sweet.
Jeez, that sounds super sweet. Yeah, I totally say what you're saying, Liam. I can imagine, because like I never dated like a black person, so for me it's been like Asian and Latino and so on and so forth, and I feel like in that happens absolutely. So I can totally see what you're saying. It must be even more extreme than for you, maybe. I'm not sure how race. I've never been to Australia. I guess is it as like, I don't know.
It depends which part you go to. The north and south of Sydney are definitely more racist than the other parts, but like we are far from a utopia.
Oh yeah, I think it's very racist. There are pockets of like Sydney that are very progressive as well, but then there are a lot of areas where like I think as a country as well, like even the Australian government, like we're very racist, especially also to our Indigenous population, which I think we have discussed on this podcast before. Like we've got terrible laws.
One of the most horrific histories of treating Indigenous people possible.
I mean, we also had the White Australia policy until, I think only like, was that until the 60s? I think it was until the 60s.
That sounds harmless. What's that?
So that was the strategy to assimilate the Indigenous culture into Caucasian culture. So the idea was to quite literally breed the Indigenous out and just make everyone white.
And I think that was a policy until like the 60s.
Yeah.
Quite recent.
Like shockingly recently,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of the world.
60s or 70s or something, yeah.
That's over half our nation's history.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess as a German, I'm not really one to talk, but we're like 80 years. So yeah, jokes on.
I mean, that was the crazy thing though. That was the crazy thing I remember thinking when I was in history class learning about this, because we were going through Australia's history, and it was sort of like we talked about World War II, and then we talked about that period sort of, you know, like in succession of each other. And it was like, so hang on a second. We got on our high horse and decided to get ourselves involved in World War II because we were horrified about the Holocaust and the eugenics that were going on in Germany, but we were doing it here, and we continued to do so for like a few decades.
Not only that, but we'd been doing it for like a century at that point.
I did not know. I mean, I kind of knew about the Aborigine situation per se, but I didn't know it was that fucked up. Holy shit.
It's worse than we're telling you.
Yeah.
Like there are things that we just probably should not say on this podcast that happened to the Indigenous population, like legitimately. Some of those history lessons were sickening.
An Aboriginal boy actually got, he was murdered in Perth last week or the week before, I can't remember now, but it was very recent. got hit like by a bat.
Indigenous people can still be beaten up in the heart of Sydney.
Yeah.
Like, that was a story that happened last year, right? Bad does not sum it up. Shall we turn to something a bit lighter, perhaps?
I was going to say, our podcasts are having very dark endings.
We tend to have very dark endings.
True. I will say though, I mean, I think it's still, even though it's kind of uncomfortable talking about it, it is still important to, I guess, talk about it, because
absolutely.
as I said earlier, myself, like, obviously I'm not blind or anything. Again, like, I live in an Asian country, and I have grew up with friends from, Arab countries, Asian countries, whatever, had like interracial partnerships. So it's not like I'm not aware that racism is very real all over the world. And probably to some degree exists in any country. I will say Norway was incredibly progressive when I lived there, like, literally. I mean, I'm sure there is some racism there, but great place. I think the Scandinavian countries might be leading there. But yeah, I still feel like working on the internet and stuff like that, and like just being in contact with so many creators from all over the world, I think it's easy to get a little bit lost in that bubble where it kind of feels like things are okay and things are good. I don't know if you ever get that.
I grew up in that bubble. As I was telling you both off camera, like, I went to a very mixed race school where my best friends were South African, Chinese, Korean, and so many more. Like, I didn't even have a concept of racism until well into high school. Like, I grew up in a very, very big bubble. The only thing that determined who you would make fun of is if they weren't in on the current trend at the time. Like, if they weren't playing Pokemon, loser. Like, that was legitimately the only thing.
Which is fair.
That's really interesting, because when I went to primary school, like, the area that I grew up in was also very multicultural. Like, the cliques that formed was very much like racial groups. It was like very much, like, your groups really, they seem to, in primary school, like, they seem to form a lot of like in particular, the cool group and the popular girls were all white. And I managed to infiltrate that group. And my best friend and I, who is Tongan, and I were the only non-white girls who were part of the, the cool group in school.
Congratulations on your social mobility.
Thank you. Thank you. And I felt like, and even then, I felt like I was an outcast. Like, I was very much aware of the fact that, like, I did not fit in. All right.
We have 8 more minutes for a fun topic.
Yeah. So, I have a story that you'll both enjoy. Have either of you seen Final Destination, any of the films?
I think I saw
watched
1.
2 and 4.
Cool. So you understand the general concept then. The general idea is that a bunch of school kids escape death due to magical premonitions, but then death keeps coming after them and killing them in lots of convoluted ways. Cool. We've established that. I had a Final Destination moment the other day where something very convoluted happened to me. So, I got something rather large delivered to my office. So, I walked to the office to receive the delivery. On my way, I'm going by a mechanic complex, which is important because as a result of a mechanic, there's a bunch of junk sitting out on the pavement, assorted pieces of car and stuff. I don't know. I am not a metal man. Now, just as I'm walking, this is all, just stick with me, by the way. This is all very important. Just as I'm passing the mechanic, there is a postman on what I can only describe as like a post cart driving down the side of the road because they've introduced those now. I don't know how long they've been around, but post people used to like ride thin motorcycles, and now they have these entire like postal rickshaws of mail that they use to drive down the street. So me being the good citizen that I am, I obviously take a step to the left to avoid the post cart. That was my mistake, because I walk straight into the junk pile and I get caught in like a metal ring thing. I realize this far too late. So I get not 1 foot caught, but 2 feet caught. And just like in 8080 in The Empire Strikes Back, I face plant right down into the ground when I try to take another step. Which then causes one of my wireless headphones to pop out, roll onto the side of the road, and this is one of the most cinematic moments of my life when I turn to watch helplessly as it is run over and destroyed by 3 to 4 cars immediately in a row. These are new headphones, by the way.
Oh no, fuck.
So I eventually untangle myself from the metal ring. I take a look down. I was holding my phone. I realize the phone screen is now cracked. I'm bleeding in 3 different areas around my body, or at least 3. And then, not 10 seconds later, I get a call from the delivery guy saying, your delivery's been delayed till tomorrow.
Oh no.
So I'm standing there, bleeding, devices destroyed, life completely in tatters, and it's all for nothing. And the only thing I can do at that moment is just laugh at the catastrophe that's occurred. I must have looked insane. It was a he laughed moment, because I just started thinking about all of the tiny little things that had to happen in this exact time, in this exact space, for this catastrophe to occur. Like, if I'd left the house 10 seconds earlier or later, wouldn't have happened. If the postman was 10 seconds earlier or later, wouldn't have happened. If the mechanic didn't leave the piece of shitty ring out, it wouldn't have happened. If the obvious one, if I'd been paying more attention, it wouldn't have happened as well. But it was really Final Destination-y in the way that all of these small things came together to destroy me. And that's my story.
I totally know what you're saying. I feel like these moments happen pretty often in life, though, where like I often like lose something or hurt myself or like do something stupid or break something just because I'm like, oh, I can still like, I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah. So so I was thinking to myself, I was thinking, okay, am I gonna go down and grab like just like an onigiri or something quickly for a snack? And then I was like, no, you had an onigiri yesterday. Go get something better. So I got myself some nuts, which are more healthy. So I went down, got up, got the nuts, and then I was like, oh, I could just eat those from the bag, or I just could eat them from here. But I'm like, no, I'm gonna be a good person. I'm not gonna be a savage. I'm gonna get a bowl for those nuts to put them in. And then I walked over, but I had forgotten, like, because I decided to go out, I had to put my sweatpants down there because I had changed into proper clothes. So I tripped over those and then just crashed the bowl into my window. And I was like, you could have just gone with the onigiri.
It really reminds you just how fragile life is. All it takes is a couple of small things coming together and you could die.
Yeah, like when you do a mind map, like those decisions.
You're right. It's so much nicer ending the podcasts on like more positive notes.
True that. Well, as you've said it, we have come to the end of another podcast. However, it is not in fact the end. If you're a member, there is a member video waiting for you right now. Extra content, potentially racy, potentially not. I don't know. We don't know. We don't plan those. We don't plan anything, but we thank you for being a member regardless.
Also, don't
Manu,
forget
Sophie,
to subscribe to the Blue Banana Podcast for daily and weekly insertions of banana directly into your anus, into your subscription feed. Did I do it right? Did I do the outro right? It was usually your intro, right?
You know what? We're just going to use that outro. Thanks. See you guys next week.
Bye.